Welcome to FitBody Lifestyle, the show where we dive deep into the world of fitness, health, business, relationships, and the art of living a balanced life. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Greg, and we're here to give you the benefit of our experiences in the fitness and bodybuilding industry, the corporate world, running a business, personal development, and building healthy relationships.
Whether you're sweating it out in the gym, hustling in your business, or seeking balance in your everyday life, you're in the right place.
So lace up those sneakers and grab that water bottle, and let's get ready to transform our minds, our bodies, and our lives.
Welcome to another episode of FitBody Lifestyle. We are so happy that you decided to join us today. We have a great episode in store, and I am here with my partner in crime here, Papa Bear, Gregory D., and our OG long-term coach, Yvette Montero. I'm so happy she's here, and she has so many great thoughts and advice and all those kind of fun things to share with you. But let's first start, Yvette. What is your check-in word?
My check-in word for today is excited.
Awesome. I love it. And tell our audience that if they don't know you, a little bit about you, a little bit about your background. And
I've been competing for almost 10 years. I met Jamie and got on this team 3 weeks before my second show. That's been a really fun journey on its own. And then I've been coaching for FitBody Fusion for about 8 years now. I do my best to make a big appearance at a lot of our shows. I specialize a lot in posing as well. And macros and nutrition are kind of my other specialty.
right. So we're going to be talking a lot about macros and nutrition today. But I want to just talk a little bit about our journey together because as you were talking about how long it's been and everything, I think back and to how we originally met. So I think it'd be fun to kind of talk about it because when you and I met, we had moved to San Antonio for that period of time. And we decided, and we coming from California where FitBody Fusion had, a very big presence. And at the time we didn't have much of a presence in Texas. So we decided we were going to do a posing seminar and you were the only one.
So I get an email notification that says that this event's been canceled on Facebook. And I'm like, well, bummer. So then I get an email from Angela and it's basically like, hey, we decided that we're just going to do a private session for you since we canceled the thing. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I go and I know who FitBody Fusion is because I'm from Northern California. So I had seen the name, I had heard of you guys, but by the time that I moved to Texas, you guys aren't there anymore. Well, when I saw this pop up, I couldn't be more excited because I knew this team. So I knew how I was going to meet. And it was just funny that I was the only person in San Antonio that knew who FitBody Fusion was. But I'm grateful for it. It let us here.
Yeah. I'm so grateful for it too. And we ended up having a great session together. And, you were with another coach at the time. And, do you want to talk a little bit about the kind of the coaching style before and what changed and how that changed for you? Because I think it's a good learning. Yeah.
So I met Jamie 3 weeks before my very first show. And initially it was just for posing. And I was like, I wanted everybody's opinion on posing because I wanted to be really good at this. And every time I came in, which was about once a week at that time, I just kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And I was eating less and less and less and doing more and more cardio. And she was just like, this poor girl's whittling away. She didn't want to say anything. And I didn't want to change coaches that soon because then I didn't never want to blame her for whatever placing. So once that relationship ended, I came over and went from more of a strict meal plan to macros and got my food increased to the most that I had probably been eating in years at that point. And it was a real eye-opener that it wasn't necessarily the magic of what you were eating. It was the magic of how much and the quality of the food. Back then, this was also when macros were very much like the Pop-Tart diet, right? Do you remember that?
Yeah, it fits in my macros, right?
Yeah. So there was literally camps of people that were anti-macros because people, they saw it as just the junk food diet versus people that were meal. It was very interesting how that was like a clash.
There was no integration between the two.
I distinctly remember I don't know if it was an Instagram feud. I think it was an Instagram feud.
I think it was Facebook at the time.
It might have been Facebook feud. It was some InstaFace or Faceagram or something feud with you and I think I remember who it was, but it was about clean eating.
It was Josh.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I wasn't going to mention names, but clearly you don't have that boundary.
Oops. Is this live?
Yeah,
No.
it will be, but and it's okay because there's a number of people that have that name out there. But there was a big, I don't even know, where am I going? There was this big feud though going back about clean eating, bro diet, macros, and it got. I mean, it got a little bit.
People were getting a little up in arms. Yeah. It was
very. I mean,
comical. It was
comical and controversial because the whole macro and I do think IIFYM if it fits in my macros. And look, it's true. You can fit a Pop-Tart in your macros. So you can fit it in your macros, and
it depends on how high your macros are.
But
and whole food choices are still the preferred. So, and
the
we'll
nutrient
get into that.
density.
Yeah.
And the amount of hunger you're going to have. And that's the big thing, that I found when I started using a macros-based approach is that I naturally gravitated towards more whole natural foods that are higher in fiber because they were going to be more satiating, especially in a prep when food got low and things like that. I mean, I wouldn't dare waste 40 grams of carbs on a Pop-Tart or something at the time. Like I would be starving.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the part of the Pop-Tart thing that I just want, I'm not going to, well, I guess
it's so weird that Pop-Tarts was the thing people chose.
It was Pop-Tarts and protein powder because we were also using xanthium gum to make all sorts of weird fluffy things that mostly just constipated you.
Which still happens from time to time. But I think we would all agree with this one concept is that, okay, there's no, a Pop-Tart is not a preferred food. However, and this is the beauty of macros, is that if it means sticking with your macros and having a Pop-Tart versus going with a meal plan and adding the Pop-Tart on top of it, then the macro approach is the preferred approach. If that's what you need psychologically, and again, your diet's only as good as your willingness to stick to it, or and I don't like the D word. Your nutrition is only as good as your willingness to stick to it. So if this becomes a psychologically, I gotta have a Pop-Tart, you can manage cravings a little bit more adaptively through macros than you can through a meal plan. And that's really, I think, what IIFYM was meant to describe was the flexibility and adaptability of it versus the strict regimented, hey, you're going to be on tilapia, broccoli, and rice.
I think where IIFYM missed the mark was it didn't include fiber.
Correct. I agree with that.
Because it's protein, carbs, fat, and fiber. Because if you are filling your day with Pop-Tarts and protein powder, you're never going to hit that fiber.
Well, and I would go on to say sugar too. I mean, sugar goes in that area.
I don't like sugar as part of that personally.
Okay. Well, we can agree
Jamie
to disagree.
and I are in the same camp on this one, and that's because of the fructose impact. Because if you're having fructose and you're combining it with fiber, then you're not getting that same insulin response.
Right. Everybody for a while, was focused on the what was it? Now I'm having a brain fart here.
Sugar-free?
No, how they would classify foods in different categories in terms of their impact.
Glycemic index?
Yeah, glycemic index. Thank you. I was having my brain fart there. But the reason I bring that up is just because exactly what you said. Once you start adding fiber in, so if I eat a food that's high on the glycemic index, but then I'm putting fiber in it and maybe I'm also adding a protein source to it and, that kind of thing, now all of a sudden the level goes way down. So very rarely are we eating something in isolation that's going to be high on the glycemic index. It's usually as part of the total. And as you said, certainly if it's a whole food, like, I remember when I started competing, fruit was just, oh no, you did not eat fruit, and fruit is so good for you. We're missing out on those antioxidants, those phytonutrients, the fiber that comes,
all of it. Absolutely.
All of it. So, there's been times where I remember telling athletes, like, I need you to add in at least 2 to 3 servings of fruit and then what?
What do you mean? I can eat fruit? That's sugar.
Right.
It's fructose and there's fiber. I don't want you drinking juice because now we're talking about that insulin effect again.
Right.
Because you've taken out the parts that mitigate that.
Right. Right. But the fiber and then also sodium is, I found a good way to also to make sure we're not eating a bunch of processed foods. Although, sodium's a more difficult one just because some people's bodies need more sodium than others. So it's, while it can be a way to control, there's some difficulty in that. But I agree. I think fiber is the main one. Yeah. So I want to go back. So back to the story. So your first show that you did where you were, doing so much cardio and eating so little food, you came in, you just looked very thin. You performed beautifully, but didn't really go well, but what was it? How was it? 6-8 weeks later, we put you back on stage.
That sounds right.
Reversing you up, getting that food up, bringing that cardio
way down
to like nothing.
Yep.
At the end. And then you did extremely well. And
yeah.
And
I placed, I want to say, somewhere in the top 2 at that second show, which was like a 12-place increase from the 1 weeks prior. I mean, it was a totally different experience. And my experience on show day was different because of it, because I was drinking, I was eating, I was hydrated, I had energy, I felt good.
Yeah. And when you say drinking, by the way, so for clarity, you were drinking
water.
Okay.
Water, yes. Hydrating, I suppose I should say.
She wasn't taking shots at the bar. I mean, no.
That is an approach. It's not a preferred approach or a
I've
desired
seen it.
approach.
I've seen it.
I've had an athlete that brought a bottle of Jägermeister to a show one time, and yeah, this was not a good situation. She was. That's a whole nother thing, but not recommended, guys.
I think all of us have seen people that go on stage and they will take a shot before they go on stage. And some people, a shot becomes several shots, and it does. Yes, an interesting experience.
Isn't there like
to
a wine
that.
to dry out theory too that I've seen?
We've seen that,
Actually, my first coach would have me do that the night before, drink wine. Yeah.
But you've got to wake up so lovely the next morning with like a wine hangover from, I'm sure, little food, no water.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm glad we've evolved.
Yes. We've come along.
We have, and we have not. I mean, I do think that there's still some of these old practices that, or whatever practices that are around, old, young, whatever you want to call it. But
people still follow meal plans.
Yep.
So I think that experience though got you passionate about coaching too, right? Just getting to see how to create an approach that's going to work well.
It was the sustainability of it, where it wasn't something that had to be a season. I didn't have to be in prep because I'm 12 weeks out from a show. I could still have that much more control over my food. As a kid, I was really skinny. So I was the kid that, they would let me eat ice cream for dinner, not with dinner, for dinner, because it meant I was eating. They didn't care. And as an adult, I had that same pretty good metabolism for a little while until I hit probably my early 20s. And then that slowed down as my drinking increased. And then
not water drinking.
That was definitely alcoholic beverages. That time has since passed. But I woke up one day in my late 20s and I just didn't like the way that I looked, the way that I felt, the way that I performed. So I started looking into exercise and nutrition. And I thought that I was doing the right things with following this meal plan and being really strict, but it took a lot of my life away, where it made prep this really kind of myopic thing. That's all I could do, unless I wanted to bring my rice and meat with me. And that kind of sucks. It's not a way that you want to live your entire life. And macros really changed that, where it was like, oh, I have more control. If I feel like I'm getting a little too far on one side, I now have the tools to mitigate that, and not in a way that I'm hurting my body hormonally or putting myself in a situation that's uncomfortable in terms of hunger, because macros have given me the power to mitigate a lot of that hunger through fiber and through understanding nutrition. I have more control.
And that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk on this episode with you specifically about this, because I feel like you're very, very good about educating your athletes also on not just hitting your macros and kind of going through the motions, but then how do I make this more sustainable, whether they be lifestyle or whether they be, off season, in prep. I mean, all of these phases of life. And I agree with you. Like for me, learning the macros approach, even though I don't compete anymore, has allowed me to easily be able to sustain a body composition I feel comfortable with.
Jamie's my shining example of how beautifully this works as a lifestyle. I've spent the last almost decade with you guys, watching the way that you guys interact with each other, the way that you guys go out to eat. There's a lot of just unsaid conversation, but they split meals. And if he needs more, he can have more. He's a much larger fella, but they split meals. And she's really mindful about what that calcs out to. And it's just the years and years of developing that language of knowing what those portions look like on a plate, how they calculate, not just on paper, how they calculate to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of us do better with more fat. Some of us do better with more sodium, more carbs. You have to know that about yourself too, but that also takes time. But
Absolutely.
these are the skills that we're learning, and that's the result of them when you practice.
Thank you. Thank you. And you know, and I've had people that also want to just only track when they're eating their meals, but then not track when they're going out to restaurants. For me, that was where I learned and grew the most. You agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what I call flexing your language, like skills, right? Like now is the time when like you're learning all of these, you're gathering all this data when you're at home making your meals. Now you get to go speak that language to someone else, somewhere else. That other someone is still you. But you're now giving yourself the opportunity to learn more. How do I apply this knowledge?
Well, I guess it's the difference between learning the language in Rosetta Stone or Pimsleur or whatever else and then actually going and speaking the language with somebody else.
Exactly.
And I think the other thing that came to mind was there's a difference between tracking for plan and tracking for awareness. And so tracking for plan, your macros are set, you want to hit those targets, but the other part of it is tracking for awareness. And this is why we encourage tracking alcohol, for example, because until you recognize the impact that has on your overall nutrition ecosystem, then, oh yeah, I can have this drink. It's a small drink, or I can have this bite. And how often do we see this where people say, well, I had 3 or 4 bites. And obviously there's no videotape of this. There's no, security camera footage, but I always, in my mind, just wonder how many was a few bites, because I know I've gotten into those settings. I mean, yesterday I just opened a bag of popcorn, and I thought in my mind I was going to start out and say, I'm just going to have maybe 4 or 5 bites, and then I started eating it, and pretty soon the bag's empty, and it's like,
I helped.
Holy shnikes. No, you did not. You were not with me. You were getting.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Boom Chicka Pop.
No, I was.
How many bags of popcorn did you eat?
When you were at your stretching class, I was watching Reacher, and I needed some popcorn. So it was just a need. Yeah, I needed, right, in my mind. But it's amazing that there was probably a half a bag left, and in my mind I thought, okay, I'm going to eat maybe half of the half, and then all of a sudden the bag's empty.
Hey, I was going to eat that later.
There's another bag. Selfish. There's another bag, not shellfish, but selfish. And you just keep interrupting the story. So now my stories are long. This story got longer because you keep interrupting me. So it's okay. It's all right. Anyway, no, you don't have to. I like it actually when you participate. So keep doing that. Right. And we're off topic anyway. The bag was empty is the bottom line. And so again, if I had just done that, and maybe I'm aware of the bag, but where the macro tracking comes into benefit is that had I actually put that into our macro tracker, I would have seen, okay, instead of X number of macros, now I'm at Y number of macros, and if I was trying to get that within a structured plan, how does that impact my overall plan?
Well, now you can mitigate, right? Now you can do that damage control, because let's say that you had this unexpected bag of popcorn, but you also had a really big heavy rice meal plan for the day. You've still got carbs left. So maybe now you kind of get stuck with protein and veggies for dinner because you used all your carbs earlier. But now you have the knowledge, right?
Right.
So same thing when people go out to drink. Oh my God, how do I drink? Or I had 3 beers. Cool. Let's plan that in for my fitness pal. Oh no, all you logged was your beer. You also have to log the impact of the alcohol. Here's your choices, as a carb or as a fat. You get to pick, but it's a lot.
Right.
I personally stopped drinking when I started tracking macros for that reason.
Because you saw the impact.
I saw the impact.
Wasn't worth it.
I would honestly, 100%, I would rather have a cookie than a beer. And that was it for me. That was the change. There's no noble reason that I don't drink. I just would rather eat my calories.
Well, we can call this Jamie will tell this story better than me, but it's the pot pie effect. And the pot pie effect is, go ahead, tell the story because you know what it is.
No, you could tell it.
So what restaurant was it?
We were at Yard House.
Yard House. And they had a chicken pot pie. And I'm sorry, chicken pot pie has a nostalgic allure for me because it goes back to my childhood of having Swanson's chicken pot pies, which I still love, but I don't eat anymore because I know what the macro impact is. So we had been there maybe a couple times, and the second or third time, Jamie said, I wonder how many macros are in that. I think that's how this conversation started.
No, I said, would you like to know what the macros are in that? And you said, no. And so I said,
you told him anyway.
Hold on, let me look it up.
Yeah, and so now I have never ordered a pot pie, and I mean we
it was like 1,500 calories.
Yeah, it was amazing.
It was a lot of fat. Yeah,
we were at Outback once, and I think we were just curious about how many macros were in a bloomin' onion. And oh my god, it's like 3,000 calories. I mean, it just is like it was enormous. And again, it's the awareness. So the awareness allows you to make better choices. And as we've talked about this thematically, and this is a mindset aspect as well as a macro aspect, but it is when you can create space between the stimulus and your response. And oftentimes that space you can occupy with, I wonder how this impacts my macros. If you get that urge to, man, I want a Cinnabon, or I want this, or I want that, when you can, okay, before I have that, I just want to see how does that impact my macro plan for the day. Oh, okay.
I can no longer eat today. I get to have egg whites for the next 5 meals.
So I think that go ahead.
There are times that it is worth it.
That's right.
I remember when I worked in San Antonio, my boss used to come in, and every once in a while he would get these incredible cinnamon rolls. That's worth it. So I would basically eliminate the carbs for my next 2 meals and just eat the chicken. But it was so worth it for me to have that one thing. And that's okay.
Right. It's the exception, not the rule. And that's
right. But it also didn't mean that I said, throw caution to the wind and I'm having it and my normal meals.
Right.
Right. I had more control.
Right.
And there's one other thing I would insert here too for people is that, okay, do the macro tracking, find the impact, stimulus, space, macro track, then response. Do I eat it or do I not? There's another part of this that I would encourage people to do, which is journal. And I've told this story a time before, but every time we fly into Pittsburgh, I think the Phoenix Gate must be right outside the Cinnabon. And so we're walking on the jetway, and you can smell the Cinnabon about halfway down the jetway. And so stimulus, that is the stimulus. My response is, oh my God, I want one. That smells so good. Well, I had one, and then I realized, oh my God, this doesn't taste near as good as I thought as the smell is. And I'm not going to tell you I did this. I did think about it after the fact. Is had I journaled that and said, when I've gotten off in Pittsburgh and smelled the Cinnabon, the taste of the item was never as good as what the smell was. So this creates the additional awareness. So journaling can be an incredible tool for determining or for helping you to progress with your awareness, because at the end of the day, that's really what it is: awareness and understanding.
And choice.
And choice.
Always choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think the other thing is, I think about as you're describing that situation, had you not let yourself have the cinnamon roll, and then you had that sense of frustration or lacking or whatever, then maybe you would have gone off and done something.
Or you get resentful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? The other thing, like, this doesn't work for me. I don't like this macro thing.
Right.
Because now it's causing you that restriction. And the only thing that's restricting you is you.
Right. And it truly is. It's the being at choice that to me is that's so freeing. And then all of a sudden, when you realize you're at choice and you can make that choice to have it, you just have to, not have some things the rest of the day. Then all of a sudden you're like, do I really want it? Or maybe I only want half of it.
I've tried that before too.
In that case, it probably wasn't going to work.
I can't have a cinnamon.
But so let's kind of like roll back to you have a new client that comes on with you. I know we deal with this a lot on consultations with people that haven't done macros before, and they're nervous. It feels daunting. They're like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can do this. You have that person that's never done it. How do you help somebody initially kind of get that ball rolling?
So I like to think about it as every meal is complete. I have a protein, a carb, and a fat. Preferably a carb source that also has fiber, something whole, nutrient dense. So then it's just like, what do you like to eat? What do you like to have for breakfast? Oh, you're a 2 eggs and hash browns kind of gal? Cool. Well, we can do 2 eggs, but it's going to eat up a bunch of your fat. So we don't really have more space in that meal. So let's add in some egg whites. Okay, well, how much potato can I have? Throw a number in there and let's figure it out. Try 100 grams, see what it looks like. Okay, cool. We've got a protein, carb, and fat in that meal. Let's move on to the next one. Same rules apply. What's my carb? What's my fat? What's my protein? Oh, I usually do a sandwich with deli meat. Okay, I'm not a big deli meat kind of person. It's a lot of sodium for what you're getting. My vote, make your own chicken, slice that. So cool, she agrees. Sliced chicken breast, a couple of pieces of maybe wheat toast, a little bit of lettuce, maybe some sprouts, have an apple. Right? My carbs are all dressed. Everything has fiber. I've got some veggies in there, not a ton. I can use some avocado if I need some fats in that, right? Protein, carb, fat, a little bit of fiber. What amounts though? I don't know yet. I'm just establishing the what's. So I go through all of those meals and establish my what's. My carbs are probably at like 100 grams of whatever the item is. My fats are probably about 50 grams of whatever the item is as my baseline starting point. I have all those meals in there. I kind of know what my framework is, what I'm eating for the day. Now at the end of the day, my fitness pal's like, you got a lot of carbs, you're a little short on fat, and your protein's way off. Cool. Now I can look at those meals. Where can I add more? What do I need more of? When you're making this mostly based on something really whole food, nutrient dense foods, you have a lot more space to manipulate. Because now, let's say I need another 6 grams of carbs. I can bump my apple up a little bit, right? So instead of 100 grams of apple, now I'm having 105 because I want that little zero at the end of the day. But it's mostly figuring out the what and then manipulating and adjusting your numbers from there. My boyfriend likes to call it pulling levers, right? Because you're just trying to get everything to balance back out. When you're first starting out, that does mean that you end up with a weird meal occasionally because you don't know what that looks like in actuality. So let's say you plan out your sandwich and you're like, 100 grams of avocado sounds great. And then you get it and you're basically eating an avocado sandwich with a little bit of chicken. Now you know, hey, I need a different fiber, I need a different fat source there. Maybe I'll use some mayo. You know, there's nothing off limits. It's just about how you calc everything out to get it even.
It's like a puzzle.
It's exactly that. It's figuring out your macro puzzle.
Interested in changing your life or stepping on stage? Join FitBody Fusion today.
Experience the FitBody Fusion difference with tools, knowledge, and community support to reach your healthy and sustainable lifestyle.
We guide thousands on their fitness journeys, from seasoned athletes to those who are simply seeking a healthier life.
Our expert coaches provide personalized plans and unwavering support, empowering you to thrive.
FitBody Fusion is more than just training. It's a community. We understand the challenges of solo fitness journeys, which is why we foster a supportive environment where members encourage and motivate each other.
Join the FitBody Fusion community today and unlock your full potential.
Head to fitbodyfusion.com to sign up for a free consultation.
And do it today. And I liked what you said, how you start this with the what. Figure out the what you want, and then figure out how to make it work. I know that we supply a list of food lists, and I think one of the things that's so important with this too is that it's figuring out. Look, different foods work with different people, and some people have gone to the gene analysis and figuring out what foods work with them, and what gene
diet.
mutation, blood type, and all that stuff. And one of the things that at least I personally encourage people to do is focus on foods that work with your body. And if you want to experiment with a food, do one food that you're experimenting with so that you can determine, how does this impact my overall response? Does it bloat me? Does it make me gassy? Does it affect my digestion some way or somehow?
Recently, I had a client that was like, I'm really bloated this week. I don't know what's different. Okay, weird. We're in prep. She's eating mostly the same stuff. So I go back through her nutrition. She tells me which days are the off ones. And I'm like, oh, she added in Hershey's syrup. It fits her macros. It's like 15 grams, but whatever's in that, whatever artificial sweetener, doesn't digest well for her. And it's a simple fix of take that out.
I've seen that happen too. We were experimenting with using a liquid carb for show
like
day.
the carbolin, yeah.
And I don't want to do that during show week, or on show day. So we experimented with like 4 weeks out, and it turned out that the person that was experimenting with it had a negative reaction to dextrose that was in this particular blend. And I've had other people use it, no problem. But with this particular athlete, they did have a response. And so I do think that within this realm of macros, and that's one of the things I love about it, is that you can and actually you should, and we encourage you to experiment
and find what works for you.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's a lot of self-awareness. Bodybuilding in general, training is a lot of self-awareness, right? Because you have to feel those muscles, right? You have to feel everything engaged. Pay attention to your body. That also goes internally.
I came up with a new acronym, IIFWYFY. If it works for you. instead of IIFYM. I'm sorry.
If it works for you, yeah, but that's too broad, because now it's like, well, what works for me is not tracking and eating at McDonald's, right?
Pizza and Baskin Robbins. No.
So the consensus is fail. Leather belt, fail.
Oh God.
Oh God.
We're going to the dark place now. No, I love that's how you start out, and I've done it similarly, and just start plugging things in, and then, like you said, look at the whole day, see what's off, start to kind of move things around, and like you said too, like just stick with that for a little bit so you can see, what does that look like, what does that feel like. Okay, it's way too much avocado in one meal, that I'm going to move that around, and then you can kind of start to play with it. I feel like, there's the learning curve is like 2 to 4 weeks, where people, if they're brand new, where they're starting to kind of then feel a little bit better.
I would say 2 weeks, yeah, when you're probably pretty confident. Depends on how good you are at like mental math and your memory too. Mm-hmm. My male clients and my boyfriend, for instance, they pick it up fast. Like the values of foods, they start to learn what the portions look like. And it's like, that's 3 ounces of meat. And it's like, no, he's right. Some people are really, really good at it initially. Sometimes there is a longer learning curve. I think it also depends, do you make your own food? Mm-hmm. Right? Because that's another variable. If I'm using all whole nutrient dense foods, I can get really accurate down to the gram. I'm also the one in control putting all of that in there. There's a whole new variable if I'm not used to making my own food. What do I make? It doesn't have to be anything difficult either. Steam your veggies, bake a potato, cook some rice. As long as you're having those things with that fiber, have your veggies, make a whole pack of chicken on the barbecue. That's what I do, and just pick off that for the week. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. If you are eating out, it's totally possible, totally doable. It's just another variable. It is harder.
Yes. Well, and one other thing I wanted to ask before we switch gears though is you had mentioned putting it in grams. So talk about like why are you suggesting grams? What other things do people sometimes do?
You see a lot of people want to track in cups, right? So you want to, serve yourself a cup of broccoli. So you take out your cup measuring thing and you put a cup of broccoli in it. The problem with that is that's a volume measurement. So think about a cup's worth of broccoli, right? And then think about a cup's worth of rice. Now, is that rice cooked? Is that rice uncooked? Now we're also talking about differences in volume. There's also a difference in density. The reason that we want to track in weight is because that's a constant. There's no variable of space, right? Like there is with volume. A cup of popcorn is so different than a cup of rice. If we're talking about density, we can be accurate. We are also now speaking that agreed upon language, because on the back of every nutrition label, it tells you how many grams are in that serving size and what those macros are. So
do you go with the measurement on the label, or do you remeasure outside of the package?
The package is going to tell you what your serving size is in grams. So you can do the calculation on that and figure it out, what is one serving per gram, and enter that in MyFitnessPal, or just verify that what's in there. But my serving size in MyFitnessPal is always 1 gram. Number of servings, 100. If it's something that I'm having 100 grams of, I'm not using the 28 gram serving and then trying to figure out, is it 1.25? Am I doing 3 point whatever? I want 1 gram, 1 gram. It's just easier math. MyFitnessPal is what most of us use. It's the biggest one. It's also crowdsourced, so it's not always correct. So always go in there and like double check that what I'm seeing is accurate and what I'm logging. But weighing in density is how we're talking accuracy. And me as a coach, I want to make sure that me and my athlete are talking the same language. And that's where that comes in. I want to both agree that this is 25 grams of banana and it has this caloric impact.
Right. Well, and as opposed to a medium banana, what the heck does that mean?
Who entered that?
Right.
Did they think medium's this big? Did they think medium's this big? And even then, like medium, some of them will say 7 inch.
Yeah.
Okay.
But how thick is it?
Right? Yeah. Like there's so many variables. And
There are also
especially
so many inappropriate jokes that we could make at this point, but banana, 7,
Okay,
medium.
we're gonna-
I didn't know we were doing that
We're going
here.
to censor Greg right now.
I'm censored.
We're going to cucumber. Which is a
the worst.
whole nother thing. Whole nother thing. Oh my gosh. What is happening? But I was, as you were thinking about that, I was thinking about, okay, so we have, you know, have a cup and we're going to put, you know, medium-sized rocks in it versus pebbles in it. Those are the same materials,
right? Yeah.
but they're going to be two very different amounts if we were to weigh those two. So the other thing about what you said that I love so much is I used to do the volume thing and I feel like it dirtied everything in my freaking kitchen because every measuring cup was dirty. Every measuring spoon was used. Now when we're using the scale
I just throw everything on the plate.
right. And then
Tear, new thing.
so
My favorite is like nut butters though. Quick tip. Put the nut butter on the scale, hit tear, and then scoop out because then you can still lick the knife.
yeah. And you taught me that. And I think that is the best because, and it actually, I thought about this when Greg was talking about, you know, having a couple of bites of something. And in my mind, it's like, well, yeah, what are the couple bites of? I mean, if it's a couple bites of peanut butter, for example.
That is calorie dense.
Right. That could be 200, 300, 400 calories.
Oh, my
for a
favorite
couple
is like, I
bites.
just had a handful of nuts.
Yeah.
I got small hands. He doesn't, but it's a big impact still.
Yeah.
Back in Jamie's competing days, one of her coaches used to give her a specific number of nuts.
Yeah.
You can have 5 almonds.
Are you hunting
You
for the
can
biggest
have-
ones you
well,
can find?
That's the interesting piece, right? Because that I think makes the argument is that okay, 5 small, and I've seen almonds that are big and some that are small, and so 5 big almonds is going to be a different weight than would be 5 small almonds.
Yeah, or,
So,
or like 5 asparagus spears.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have those teeny little thin asparagus
yeah,
spears
but
or those big old fat
Yeah.
asparagus spears. I mean,
so what you're saying is size matters.
yes, size. Oh Lord.
Sorry.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry.
This is going.
Here's our
Sorry.
next clip. I can see it under the bottom.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, but not sorry.
Are you
My
Canadian
job.
now? Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Adair's been over.
Oh man. No, but these are really important factors, and I think when somebody's first getting started, if they start out this way, then it saves a lot of
Heartache in the future. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it goes with this is that you can't put toothpaste back in the toothpaste tube. So the more you put the discipline on the front end, the easier it is on the back end. And that's hard. I think I don't know. I find that that's a little bit of a tough sale for people these days. And I don't know it. I think our perspective is we are looking at it from the back end of it in a way that we've been doing this for as long. How do you get somebody to embrace that, you know, the language learning and to be able to just become comfortable, because that's more of a mindset thing than anything else. It's just, it's like when you go into and it's funny, like when you go into the gym and you're first to a squat, you're not going to master the squat. It's going to take you several times going back into the gym and
It's everything. It takes reps.
Right. It takes reps. And just like that with macros, it takes reps to get that. So is there a tip, trick, some hypnosis that you use?
Hypnosis.
Do you
I
put a
wish.
Pop-Tart on a stick and hold it out in front of them? What do you do?
On the treadmill.
Yes, on the treadmill.
I hold hands. I mean, I'm a coach. That's what I'm there for. I'm there to help guide you. So what I'll do is like, we'll usually get on the phone. We'll do that whole exercise of like, what are we eating? Follow that for a couple of days. Let me know how you feel. Do you hate this meal? Let's talk about it. If a client is like fairly confident from there, cool. Plan out 2 days that are different than the one that we just planned together and let me see it. And that's where I'll go in and be like, okay, you can have maybe a little bit more of this here, maybe a little less here. Now we can get you closer. There's also times where it's just like, I hate this. I don't have any idea what to do. Okay. Do you feel comfortable eating the same thing for a couple of days? Cool. Yeah. Then repeat that plan that we came up with.
Yeah, I love that because I feel like people sometimes when they get frustrated is because they're trying to like reinvent the wheel every single day. And we're all creatures of habit. I mean, like way before I ever started competing or tracking macros or doing meal plans or any of these things, I ate pretty much the same breakfast most days because I'm in a hurry. I got to get out the door. Yeah. So I think when people do get stressed is like you said, when they're
just rinse and repeat.
Well, if you were to create a bank, I mean, I almost think of this the way that, so we do meal prep. Or we do have a meal prep company, but if we don't have it, we just get it from them. So anyway, Anyway,
Everybody's like,
that's-
FitBody Fusion food. Where do I find this?
Yeah, we do not have that. But if there are if there's a menu of 10 offerings or 15 or 20, do put whatever number you want. You can actually do that in MyFitnessPal, where you can create a meal and then save that meal, and then okay, hey, I'm short. I don't have a lot of time to input my meal. I'm going to go pull one of these pre-prepared meals. And in effect, this is why I hate this concept of meal plan versus macros. They're
both a meal plan.
They're both a meal
You're
plan.
planning
Yes,
your meals.
That's
Yeah.
right. So
I'll go back to MyFitnessPal because I'm in there for almost a decade now. And I'll go back through and be like, what was I eating when my macros were here before?
yeah,
What was I eating
like
when I
that.
was in prep? Because you forget, like I was on a zucchini kick at one point and then totally never wanted to eat zucchini again. But it's been years. So now it's like, well, what was I eating when I liked this stuff? What did that actually look like? So it gives you kind of a database to go back to and look at your other foods. The other thing that I think is really helpful with the rinse and repeat method is, let's say the boss brings in cupcakes one day. You really want a cupcake. Well, it gives you the power to you're just adjusting one meal. You're not trying to replan your whole day. Because when you're looking at
Depending
a
on the
blank
cupcake.
MyFitnessPal, it's really daunting. Or you're like,
Yeah.
well, how do I fill this? But if you're just removing a meal and now you've just got like one kind of weird hole to plug, and it's like, okay, well, I'll have the cupcakes and then I'll just have some chicken. You know, I brought chicken, I'll just eat that. That made up for it. Oh, well, now I'm short something in this other meal. I'll just have an extra piece of avocado or something to make that up. You're left with more control, right? More power, more education, but it's easier and it's faster.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Change your sauces too. That's the other thing that I tell people. It's really easy to get your base foods down. I'm on a sandwich kick right now. Changing what you put on it, you know, sauce, avocado, you know, maybe one night everything that you're eating, your meal 5 is rice and chicken. Well, one night it has salsa and avocado. So now it's Mexican. And then another time, now you're adding in some soy sauce and some bean shoots. So you've got something else. Your base is the same, but it's a little bit more fun. It tastes a little bit different.
I love that idea.
do you like doing grams or for liquids as well?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Milliliters, ideally, it's pretty much the same though, gram for gram. And I think if you're consistently tracking it the same, it's fine to not be that specific between milliliters and grams. But I do track my liquids in grams.
Well, and I'm sure too, though, it depends on what that liquid is. So if it's something like hot sauce or soy sauce or something, those are high in sodium, but not really high in
Calorically, right. But you still want to track it because it is that impact. Same thing with, you know, the impact of the sugar-free sauce, right? Causing bloating. Same thing happens when you spike your sodium. There's been plenty of times where I'm going through somebody's nutrition and they're like, their weight's up. And they're like, well, I felt really lean all week. I really thought we were going to get a drop. I don't know why my weight's up. And I go back and it's like, oh, well, you normally have 2,000 milligrams of sodium and you had 4,000 yesterday and 5,000 the day before. You're just holding water.
And at least they log it, and that's one of the things that
it's awareness.
Thank you. That is the crescendo. There is that if it goes in your mouth, log it. And I mean that. No, don't go.
No, I have a really corny thing that goes with that.
I thought we were going
excited
to
to
get
share.
inappropriate, but we're not. Okay, so if it goes in your mouth, log it. And the reason is because even if you put something on your fitness on MyFitnessPal and it has no macros whatsoever, it can oftentimes explain the outcome for the week. So many, we had one athlete who had a weight spike and over a course of several weeks, and come to find out that they were putting creamer in their coffee, but not logging the creamer. And it wasn't a lot, but over time it becomes a lot. And I think at that point they were drinking a few cups of coffee a day. So
so
it was
that number was increasing.
Yeah, so the number was increasing, and it's like, why? And again, this is the importance of logging. Now we all know that creamer has fats in it and other sodium and sugar. But like hot sauce has no macros other than sodium. But that sodium will impact. Right. So that's where it's really important. If it goes in your mouth, log it. So tell your corny story.
Write it before you bite it.
Oh, I like it.
I like that.
Wow.
One of the other things too.
I'm writing that down.
I know, it's good, right? It's better than put it in your mouth.
When Greg just said that about the hot sauce doesn't have any macros, what popped in my head was the spray.
Butter? Or the
the spray
Ham.
oil, butter.
All the spray oils, right?
That have no macros.
But it's no macros for like a
a tenth of a
second spray, which is not enough to make your things not stick. So you're also not accounting for that little bit of actual oil that you are consuming.
Right, because it's really just oil under pressure. It's just basically the way they get away with saying it's zero.
You're just using less because it's an aerosol.
Right.
You're not actually.
It's still oil.
It's still oil. It still counts, and that is one of those things that's impactful. So, say that you start eating something different than your normal meals. Now you're cooking 2 meals in cooking spray. I'm eating the same stuff. What's different?
Right.
Minor thing, long-term, big impact.
Well, and we talk, that principle is really the principle of bodybuilding. And I talk about 4 elements in bodybuilding: time, consistency, intensity, focus. And consistency can work for you and it can work against you. If you're consistently adding these sprays to your food over time, well, in a week, it may not have a big difference. In a month, it's going to start to show. And 2 months, the cumulative effect of this stuff is like, we have the 5 gram allowance for hitting our macro targets, but I will have some people that will push that and it'll be 6 or 7 grams consistently over time. And it's like, okay, you're close, but that 1 gram or 2 gram net over our target over time adds up. And so, no, this week is not going to make an impact, but next week, week after,
and a year from now,
that's
yeah.
Right. It's the same thing with working out, is that, you go into the gym and you work out.
I love when people work out 1 week. They're like,
yeah.
do you see?
Yeah. Can you see my tie-ins?
I wish it worked that way.
Wouldn't it be nice?
Yeah, just a microwave culture.
Yeah.
But I actually had a client that did I can't believe it's not butter, because it also says it's 0. So they were just using tons of it on everything. And it's like, no, that's literally, no, it's still
everything in moderation. And I think that's where bodybuilders specifically are the worst. We don't moderate.
We're so extreme.
Because it's an excessive, it's a
more
sport of excess.
If more is fine, then I want more.
Yeah. Back in the day, the Walden Farms and
oh God. People are still using that, by the way. Oh, I see it from time to time.
I am not going to lie. The pancake syrup, I actually prefer than real syrup.
I actually like the pancake syrup. That's the only one
It's the only one.
Yeah, and you don't use a lot of it.
No.
So, but yeah.
I'm not a syrup person, and I think it's because it doesn't actually taste like maple syrup that I think it's good.
I agree with you on that one for sure.
Again,
but I remember
at
one point I got one of everything they made to try.
Oh God, that's so much.
Oh, it was so bad. Like
we had a case of stuff.
There's actually a couple of the salad dressings that aren't too bad. I think about that from back in the day, and then the shirataki noodles that became really popular, and then people were getting like digestive upset from them because they don't actually digest.
They don't digest, and you can't it's fine as a serving. It's not fine as your entire day's worth of volume because you're trying to up the volume. Actually, volume, right? Whole nutrient dense foods, we can really manipulate volume, especially deep in prep. But the thing to consider too is out of prep. You get so used to filling your belly with volume. I want all the volume. Give me broccoli. Give me stuff that's going to take up space. Well, when you start upping your macros, now you're stretching out your belly. And that's one thing that I want people to be really conscious of, at least my athletes, is going into that off season, mitigate the amount of food that you're eating. I personally use like one size bowl. I have like my favorite. They're gross and they're chipped and my boyfriend hates them. Bowls, they're the perfect size though. And that's how this is how big my belly is.
That's smart. That's smart. So then you're going to just adjust what your food choices are then.
To stay within those boundaries, because I don't want to stuff myself to the point where now I'm basically creating more space in my off season that I then have to try to fill in my in season.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I like that.
So
not to mention appetite too. I know there's sometimes when people get deep into off season, especially if they're building, that might be even too much uncomfortable. Yeah.
And that's where mitigating that fiber comes in, right? Because there is a too much. It can cause digestive distress. You can obviously be too full for too long, but figuring out what's that number that feels good for you.
Yeah, when Angela White was on the show, she talked about fiber and that, you can't go from a 5 grams per day to a 50 grams per day and not expect there to be some impact on
Oh my
you.
God, that would be
because
horrible.
because your body has got to adjust to that higher fiber load. And yes, we want high fiber, but you've got to,
Like anything,
you got to ramp up to it. That, okay, my fiber's low. Okay, I'm going from 5 to 50 or 5, even to 5 to 25.
That's a big jump.
That's 5 times the fiber load in a week or in a day. Your body's going to be like, holy cow, what is this extra load? And so, again, in the more is not always better. I love Aristotle, everything in moderation, nothing to excess. And that is the really, if you can, when you implement that mindset, it opens doors.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So what suggestions do you have for people? Because I do have people that I don't know how to get fiber. Like where do you, I'm sure you hear that a lot. Where do you have people start?
I probably spent like years Googling like high fiber foods because when I was deep in prep and my macros were super low, I didn't want to be hungry. So that was it. I personally do a lot of air popcorn. The kernels that you literally put in the thing and no oil, nothing. Pumpkin is another one. I'll sneak that into my oats. Chia is a great one. Obviously, most of your veggies. I'm a big apple gal personally. Apples, berries have one of your highest fiber contents. One of our coaches just turned us on to basil seeds.
Yep. I have a bag. I just had a bag in my I just ordered a bag, actually.
I haven't gotten them yet, but the macro impact is
amazing.
High protein,
insane.
high fiber, yeah.
They're just fiber with protein.
Yep.
And they're similar to like a chia.
Yes, you put them in the water. Yeah, you just soak them in water for like 5 minutes, I think it is. And yeah.
So they're similar to chia, but have better nutritional
macros,
and macro content. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Beans are another one. I'm not afraid of them, probably because I'm Hispanic. Avocado, yeah. That basically, does my carb have fiber? I'm not a big white rice in an in-season kind of person because that's when I'm the hungriest and I want the most fiber. Currently out of season for years now, I absolutely eat rice. I also eat bread. I have the space. Even then, most of my carbs still have fiber. Carbs have fiber. Fats have fiber. What are your fat sources that have fiber? Nuts, seeds, avocado, things like that, as opposed to the
olives
oils.
instead of olive oil.
That used to be one
little trick I would use if I needed like 1 gram of fat, like one olive.
Have an olive. Yeah.
Just throw it in there, or whatever else. I mean, my daughter used to make so much fun of me because I'd have like 1 olive, 1 cherry, because I wanted to zero out my macros. And she's like, "You are so weird," because it'd just be some random
But
things.
it's fun when you look at it like this little puzzle that you're trying to complete.
When you make a game, I mean, in the corporate world, right? You've worked for a big corporation. I've worked for a big corporation, and so much of the discussion around systems and processes is gamification of those systems and processes, and that just simply means that you make it competitive. You appeal to people's desire to make this fun, i.e., gamification. Really, that's what macros is. It is really set up to be gamified. What I've just found is that not everybody likes to play games. So, that's the problem, or likes not to play that game, maybe.
Maybe that game.
Yeah.
But those are the people that serve better, probably with the rinse and repeat approach.
Which is okay too. And that's why I tell people, like, if you would prefer just keep it simple, then create a day and repeat it. The biggest thing I do think is, just changing some things out some of the time so we don't start creating food intolerances because our bodies haven't digested something for so long. I have seen that as well. Is that something you have run into where people just don't ever change it?
I was that person. I think I ate the same breakfast for almost a decade. And finally, I was just like, I don't actually like this anymore. But I think that happens too. I think for myself and clients specifically, before you get that food aversion, usually you stop wanting it. Like usually your body's going to tell you something, right? So it just goes back to being aware. Mm-hmm. What does your body want? Is it telling you I don't want to eat this anymore? There's probably a reason.
Right. Yep. I mean, I know after years on a meal plan, I didn't ever want to see any tilapia or asparagus again as long as I lived. It's so funny. I remember, because oats were always on my meal plan, and that was like one of my favorite meals. But after a long enough time, I was like, I don't want to see
these anymore.
It was disgusting to me after that. But now I love them again because I don't eat them too much.
It's those seasons, but it's allowing your body to have those seasons and having the awareness to also respond to that cue.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we are at time.
Yes.
Which is good. because this is a great discussion and it's deep, and I don't know if we want to think about maybe continuing this in a part 2.
Yeah, I think what I'd love to do in another episode with you is kind of delve into, a little bit more about eating out, how to order, some more advice on, creating this lifestyle around the macros. But I think this was a really great start, and hopefully this is going to help a lot of people, start out on their macro journey, or if they're already on their macro journey, they, pick up some little additional tips along the way. So, because we're constantly learning. I mean, the basil seeds, we just learned that from one of our other coaches. Cool. Yeah, so there's always new things to learn.
Maybe that's the title of our next episode.
Basil seeds?
No, although I like that, the macro lifestyle. So we can talk about that.
I like
anyway. So let's talk about how to get a hold of you, Miss Yvette.
FitBodyFusion.com. My name's in the drop down.
And on Instagram? Or do you want that?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. Yvette.cassandra.ifbbpro.
Okay.
That's a lot.
And for everybody else, if you're looking how to master your macros, you can start that by liking, commenting, and subscribing, and leaving your review for this podcast so that we can continue to bring you this kind of content. And I know I ask for it every week. And guess what? I'm going to keep asking for it every week until we get extra followers, because we want that, and extra subscribers, because we love bringing you this content. We love being with you every day, or at least twice a week. Yeah, twice a week. And remember the 3 B's.
Be good to yourself.
Be good to each other.
And be safe.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to FitBody Lifestyle. We hope today's episode has left you feeling motivated and equipped to tackle your fitness goals, business challenges, and the daily dance of life. Remember to value progress over perfection. Life's tough enough alone. Find the chosen family around you to help you along the way.
If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite streaming platform. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at FitBody Fusion.